welcome to Groundspeed Gaming. This is the first video for Groundspeed Gaming, and it's a channel I've just created recently because primarily I'm going to be focusing on aviation videos, hence the name Groundspeed, because that's one of the most important elements of flight navigation. Occasionally I'll do some non-aviation stuff, but primarily it's going to be aviation stuff, so I just wanted to create a whole new channel for that. And this is the first game, as you can see on that aircraft in the paint scheme. It's Airport Sim, and it's a good little simulator, this one. So we're currently at Key West Airport, and I'm going to simulate fueling a 737. Now, this is one of the things I've actually done in real life for many years, and it's actually pretty straightforward. It's actually not a bad job. You might think, that's yucky, it's working outside, it's noisy, it's smelly, you know. It is, it's noisy, it's smelly. The fuel smells awful, but it's actually pretty cool. I've also worked as a flight dispatcher, which also was another great job. However, the only thing with a flight dispatcher is you're not at the airport and you're not working around aircraft. It is an office job. It doesn't matter how you spin it. As cool a job as it is, doing all the flight planning for all the flights, you're generally not at the airport and not around aircraft, and that's the downside. With this job, you're required to be around the aircraft, and that's part of the attraction to the job. So as you can see on the forward left here, we've got the 737 that's going to be pulling up. He's going to be pulling up by the fence at the far end there, so we'll get going now. These other two aircraft that are just sitting here stationary, probably overnight aircraft. And in reality, I haven't driven a fuel truck before. I use a fuel cart and a tug or a vehicle to tow aircraft, to tow a fuel cart around. I work in a place where in wintertime it gets very snowy and very icy and quite cold, and I don't like the idea of driving something this big and heavy on ice in close proximity to aircraft. And so that's my main reason for actually avoiding driving trucks. I don't like it, and not to mention the fact that ramps are very, well, they don't have a lot of room once you park all the aircraft at all the gates, and with all the ground equipment parked around, there's not a lot of room to manoeuvre, so it's actually quite challenging to manoeuvre these trucks on the ramp. But if you use a fuel cart and a small tug or a small vehicle, it's a lot easier to manoeuvre. And the fuel cart you can push by hand just to manoeuvre it if need be. So as this aircraft pulls up at the gate, you can see the beacon lights are still on, so we can't go behind it yet, so we can't go much closer. Turn the volume down a bit, it's a bit loud. Engines are loud. Okay, as you can see, the beacon lights are off, the cones are out, and it looks like there's some chocks behind the main wheels, but there would also be some chocks in front of the nose wheel as well. So the fact that the cone's out, that means someone's walked behind the aircraft, meaning the engines have been shut down. Even though it looks like it's still running, it's not. Just pull into this green box here. In reality, I don't think you'd park this large truck in this spot right here, because where this is actually going to be the main thoroughfare for the ramp guys with regards to their belt loaders, baggage carts, tugs, pushback, because all their cargo bins at the front and the back one are on this side, the same side. So I don't want to get in their way, and they don't want to get in your way. So, but anyway, that's okay. We've got to keep the engine running on the truck because it powers the pump, which is going to pump the fuel to the actual aircraft from the truck. So in order to do this safely, we need to put chocks in front and behind the wheel. It doesn't depict that, but that's what you would do in real life. And even before we set up, we would pull out this electronic device, and in reality, it would actually tell you not only how much fuel you've got to put on board, so that's apparently what's on board. We wouldn't find that out until we open the panel. How much we need to add, but also it'll give you the actual registration number, the tail number of the actual aircraft, and there'll be an area where you have to enter the ship number. Okay, here's an example, American Airlines 737. It's set up here at Key West in a slightly different position, but similar to the location of the airport sim. And as you can see, they've got the tail number, 902 November. And underneath that is a 3-letter code, 3 Juliet Lima, which is correct. That's a real life ship number. So that's the ship number. It starts with number 3. All 737s at American Airlines start with number 3. They're also located on the nose as well. So it's a 737-800, and it is 3 Juliet Lima. And that's the ship number we enter as fuelers into the electronic device. I believe they have that ship number on their aircraft so that when you go to fuel an aircraft, you have to get out and check the tail number and get the ship number and enter that into the electronic device to confirm that you're on the correct aircraft, which is to prevent you from fueling the wrong aircraft, which has happened in the past. So they don't want that to happen, because that sort of stuff just causes additional delays potentially. So this is the grounding cable. I've just grabbed it from the truck, and we'll just connect that. So what that does is that makes the static charge between the truck and the aircraft the same. So when you go to hook up the hose, there's not going to be any spark jumping between the hose and the aircraft, because you don't want any sparks jumping where the fuel flows. Also, that's actually where you ground Airbuses. 737s are grounded right about there, where that white dot is in the middle. But, that's fine. The principles are the same. And normally you'd grab a hose, not a hose, a ladder. And you'd set your ladder up here. Right, you climb up the ladder, open the panel, and you check that. I'd actually normally check that before I even pull the equipment out, because it doesn't happen often, but occasionally an aircraft will pull up, you'll open the fuel panel, and you actually don't need to add any fuel. It's rare, but it does sometimes happen. So you'll check it before you actually pull the equipment out. So what we're going to do is, that's how much we need to add. So what I'll do, I'll show you a quick trick as to how you calculate the fuel to put on board, because you've got to split it between 3 tanks. All you need to do for the 737, this applies to at least the 800s and the 900s, maxes and non-maxes. Generally with 737s, they hold up to 8,600 pounds of fuel in each wing. Now, with regards to fuel, what you need to know is that fuel density is a real thing, meaning when the temperature is hot, the density of the fuel increases. The density decreases, so it takes up more room. I had that backwards. So when it's hotter, each gallon of fuel takes up a little bit more room. But the physical size of the fuel tank doesn't change. So in summer, you generally can't fit as much fuel in each wing compared to really cold winters. So I've found in the middle of summer, putting 8,600 pounds in each wing is not always doable. But I found 8,500 about 99.9% of the time actually works in summer. So just generally, I always put 8,500 pounds in the wing, not 8,600, if it needs that much fuel. So what I'll do in this particular case, I'll just put in the total amount, which is 44,750, which is a lot of fuel. That's kind of the high end of an Indianapolis to, actually you wouldn't even need this much to go to Seattle. I'll put the total fuel in, and then I'll minus 8,500, minus an additional 8,500. Or you could just get the total and minus 17,000, and whatever remains is what goes in this center tank. It's that simple. That's the most complicated calculation you have to do for fueling. Well, actually, when one of the gauges is in op, that's a bit more difficult, but it's still not hard. Okay. So we need to put these levers. There's supposed to be a safety feature. So you set it to what the limit is, so where you want the fuel to stop flowing. The reality is no one ever uses these because they're not reliable. You do not trust any of these built-in safety features to stop the fuel flowing if it reaches a certain limit. You need to keep an eye on these gauges while you're fueling, and then just shut them off as necessary when it's time to shut them off. So I'll just let that fuel for a bit, because we've got to put 27,000 in the middle there, so just bear with me. We'll just get out of here. Just quickly go over here. We don't actually use a lever like this to turn the fuel flow on. Normally there's a meter. You'd check the meter. You'd reset the meter, because it won't flow unless you reset the meter. It's like a mini computer. And you'd hold onto a wire cable with a trigger on it. And what that is, it's called a dead man switch. So the fuel will stop flowing if you let go of the trigger. And for whatever reason, if you need to stop fueling immediately, you just simply let go of the trigger and it'll stop fueling. I can see why they didn't want to simulate that in this game, which is fine, because then you'd have to hold down the space bar or something just for the fuel to flow, and that'd be kind of annoying. All right, we've got plenty there. So we actually need 27,750. Obviously, if we were to flow the fuel, it'll stop it at that. But anyway, I'll just open this one, and this one. Now, obviously in this game, center tank's not fueling at the moment. In reality, it actually would flow at the same time. And that's how you get a lot of flights done in a shorter period of time, because it saves quite a few minutes fueling the center tank at the same time. And it does it just fine. The most gallons per minute I managed to get on a 737-900, I don't remember if it was a max or not. I think it was 412 gallons per minute, but that was with all 3 tanks open. And as you close each individual tank, the fuel rate slows down. And this one always lags behind. Tank number 1 always lags behind because we're hooked up to tank number 2. We're hooked up to tank number 2, and so by the time the fuel gets into the pipes, crosses across to the other side of the aircraft and gets into the fuel tank on the left side, this one's gone further ahead. So this one always lags behind. So tank number 2 always fills up first. But it's just the way it's physically designed. So we're going at 27,750. Also, these gauges do not have decimal readings in real life at all. In fact, it only goes up in increments of 10 pounds. Because each gallon of jet fuel, I think it weighs 6.8 pounds. So it goes up in increments of 10. So it'd be kind of pointless to go up in increments of 1 pound or even have decimal readings. So I'm hoping the game manufacturers of Airport Sim will actually correct that or just change that so that they remove the decimal readings. That'd be kind of cool. This fuels faster than it does in real life, so I can understand why they'd simulate not real life time to take the fuel, because for me to do a Seattle flight takes 15 minutes, the Indianapolis to Seattle, and 737-900 non-max typically takes about 33 to 34,000 pounds, and it takes me 15 minutes. I don't think you want to do this for 15 minutes straight, so I can see why they fuel this at a faster rate. So that's cool. And not having to simulate holding a deadman switch, that'd be pretty annoying too. And setting up ladders and that. These lights, you can actually push them in real life to test to see if the lights work. Obviously the light's working. And just like a Boeing in real life, the light turns on when the tank is open, and it shuts off when the fuel tank is closed. Airbuses, they're actually the opposite. So what they'll do is, you'll open the fuel tanks and the lights will turn on when the fuel tank is full. So they just, same idea, just the opposite. This thing is a 3-stage lever, so it moves up and down. And so you move it up to test the gauges. So you move it up, and what it would do is it'll turn all the LED readings to 8s, so you can see which LEDs are working, which ones are not. And also with this fuel panel door, there's a little lever that holds it open. It's got a little switch on it, and that switch needs to be pushed down, and that's what allows the power to it get to the fuel panel here. And without it, obviously, power to the fuel panel, you can't fuel it because it won't open the fuel flow gauges, the fuel valves. But if for whatever reason that switch holding the door open is not working, you can hold this down and it bypasses that switch, so it'll still get power to the fuel panel. The only main discrepancy with the 737 at least, I don't know about other Boeings, but the 737, if there's no APU running or if there's no ground power plugged in, you can't actually fuel it. All other aircraft types, including Airbuses, ERJs and CRJs, you can use battery power to power the fuel panel, and you can fuel them without any ground power or any APU running. 737, you cannot. You have to have some sort of power source powering it. That's the only shortfall of the 737. Other than that, the fuel system on the 737 is actually probably the best fuel system out of all of them. The CRJ 200s, the fuel system needs a bit of work. 700's better, but it still needs a bit of work as well for the CRJs. The CRJ 900 seems better, with the CRJs, that they tend to, when you shut them off, they tend to just, the fuel levels tend to roll back a little bit. So once you shut it off, you got to sit there for a couple of minutes. If you do it properly, sit and watch the numbers drop again. You're like, okay, I've got to add some more. So, but the 737, out of all of aircraft that I feel, that it's the best fuel system, with the exception for the fact that it needs some sort of power source in order to fuel it. So you can't do it with battery power alone. That's the only shortfall. It's the easiest operating system as well, because it's individually open or close each individual fuel valve. And with regards to fuel distribution, the only time you put fuel in the center tank is if you're going to take more than what the wings hold. So with regards to the 737, obviously 17,200 to 8,600 in each wing is the max the wings will hold. So if you're not going to have any more than 17,200, you actually won't put any fuel in the center tank. Anything beyond that, you put in the fuel in the center tank. So you only put it in the center tank if you're going to fill the wings first. And that applies across the board to all aircraft types. There we go. 27, 750. Oh, there we go. 27, 750. Let's have a look at that. Oops, let's get out of that. And what does it say? There we go. We've got enough fuel on board. Oh, it didn't register that we could connect to the grounding cable. That's going to be a problem, because that's going to think we never connected it, even though we did. Okay. So we'll simulate letting go of the dead man switch, the trigger. So that's the equivalent of letting go of the trigger. You'd look at a meter. It tells you how much fuel you just put on board. You'd note that down in the paperwork. Before we disconnect the hose, in real life what you would do is, obviously we've let go of the dead man switch by releasing that, or closing that lever. The only problem with closing the valves as you're fueling, when you've closed all the valves, the pressure that was in the hose at the time is still trapped inside the hose. So you can remove the hose or disconnect it with all that pressure still in it, but it's incredibly difficult. So what you can do is, now that you've let go of the dead man switch, so you know fuel's not going to flow anymore, the only fuel that's going to flow in there now, if you open it, is the fuel that's trapped in the hose. So opening up the center fuel tank will allow the pressure to relieve into the center fuel tank. So the fuel load might go up by an additional 10 pounds, which is okay. When the wings are full, you could try that, but because the wings are full, it actually won't relieve the pressure, because there's nowhere for it to release to, but the center tank still has room, so it'll take the pressure away. And if you have your hand on the hose when you do it, you can actually feel the pressure decrease, and it's quite a lot. So now that we've relieved the pressure, it's a lot easier to disconnect the hose. You can try it, disconnect it with the pressure in it. You can do it, but it's a lot harder. And the hose is really stiff, and it's just harder to maneuver it. All right. So, and obviously you write these numbers down, because you're going to send these in your electronic device, the final numbers. And I have a feeling that's not going to let me yes, it let me disconnect. Excellent. Last time I've played it, it didn't let me disconnect. So it must have worked properly this time. And we packed that away. And obviously you've jotted all the numbers down from the meter. Obviously that's not depicted in the simulator here, but that's cool. I get why they don't do that. And obviously before you go, just make sure the fuel panel's closed. Occasionally guys do forget to do that. And the ground crew are not allowed to touch it. So what they'll do is they'll have to call up their operations, who will then call the fueling supervisor, who will then call the fueler to say, hey, you've got to go back to the plane and close the panel, you silly dummy. So don't do it. So before you leave, you're about to get in the truck or in your vehicle, just go, yes, it's all buttoned up, good to go. All right, let's go. Because you don't want to get called back, because you've got other flights to do, so you haven't got time to come back and do things you've already worked on. And in this situation, you'd have a marshaller marshalling you back, because obviously you have zero visibility behind you with this sort of truck. This is the best we can do with this view. We just left skid marks on the road. That's cool, I guess. And there you go. That's all there is to it, to fueling a 737. And we should probably not drive on the taxiway either. And here we go. This is an Airbus, and it's dangerous. I'll do a separate video on fueling Airbuses. These ones are a separate kettle of fish altogether. The idea is the same. I'll just give you a quick rundown. Once again, you'd check your tail number and the ship number, and you would enter that into the details. Let's have a look. What are they asking for? 47,350. It's already so it's already fuel on board. And this is why, when you come to an aircraft, before you do anything, you always check the fuel panel. Now, with an Airbus, when you open up the panel, if the ground power is on or the APU is running, it'll automatically power up. It'll take it might take a minute or two. No, that's actually when there's no power. So this is as though the aircraft is completely shut down. See, and like I was saying with the 737, there's no battery power. With the Airbus, move that to battery, and it powers it up. Now, the reality is you'd have to wait probably a minute or so. The test button works on this one. The high level test works too. Very good. So that's how you test the light bulbs. And all right. And that's how you test the gauges. Occasionally you'll see bits that don't light up. But this one only allows you to do it in automatic mode. So what you would do is you would set whatever amount you want to set on there. Obviously, this one has the fuel on board that they're required already, so you're not going to add any fuel, but that's what you do. You just reselect how much you want to put on there, move that to up, and then you hold the dead man switch and you fuel. That's it. But there's a couple of errors with this one, because first of all, the wings don't hold 15,430 pounds in each wing. I've seen as much as 14,200, but it was generally on one of those colder days. We were trained to aim for 13,800 in each wing, and the remainder goes in the center tank. And once again, you don't put anything in the center tank until you know you're going to put at least 13,800 in each Airbus wing. It's depicting kilos here, however, it's meant to read pounds. So I've got it set to pounds in this game. I'm not going to show you, it doesn't hold that many kilos. It only holds 13,800 normally in each wing. So, yeah, there you go. So, I'll do an Airbus video separately from this one. But this one does not require any fuel. Oh, yeah, that's right. I've got to turn it off. Right. There you go. Not all Airbus fuel panels are on the fuselage there. My understanding is, I know with the American Airlines, they have some panels that are up here and some that are there where we just saw. And my guess is, I think all the former America West aircraft have it up here, and all the former US Airways aircraft have it over there. And so American Airlines, because they've acquired aircraft from multiple different carriers, they have a mix of the two. And any American Airlines aircraft tail numbers that start with 700, the Airbuses, A319s that start with 700, in the 700s, they're up. The fuel panels are up here. There's only one in the fleet that it's actually over there. The ones that are numbered in the 800s, the fuel panels are in the fuselage, and I think they're all US Airways ones, and the old America West ones are in the 700s on their tail number, I think. I'm pretty sure. So there you go, and that's a little tidbit of information. But yeah, I'll do a separate video on the Airbus at another time. But there goes our 737. She's fueled and ready to go. She's on her way to Phoenix, I think. I don't know. Oh, she's going backwards. That's cool. All right. Well, I hope you learned something, and I'll see you later. Take it easy. G'day, folks. Ashley here from Ground Speed Gaming, and I just wanted to show you how I do a normal pre-flight for a Cessna 172 in real life. Now, it's probably going to differ a little bit compared to what they suggest in Microsoft Flight Sim, or even what they might suggest in the flight manual. It's pretty simple, and I keep it pretty simple. At least I think I do. So I always start from this position here, so next to the pilot's door, and I always move in a clockwise direction around the aircraft. So the first thing I do is, well, normally the aircraft I fly don't have static port covers. The first thing is I'll check the static port, make sure that it's clear. That's a very important instrument that we're going to use or make reference to in flight. The 172 I fly doesn't have a quart turn screw in here, it actually has a push button. So I actually open this. This is where the ground power units connect to the aircraft. Now, it's pretty rare that I've used ground power units in general aviation aircraft. I've never used them in the 172, I've only used them in the Skycatcher when it was really, really cold. But I still open this just to have a look inside underneath the cowling, just to make sure everything looks like it's in place and whatnot. And so once I've had a look inside there, I'll just reclose it again. And then I'll just move my hand and push along the cowling to make sure that the cowling is nice and secure. And I'll look down here, make sure that the wheel looks okay. Yeah, it's not flat. Yeah, and this is looking okay, nice and inflated, like it's not sitting on the bottom there, like, you know, so, and there's no oil or anything leaking that shouldn't be. I'll come around the front here. And once again, where I'm flying, we don't have these in the aircraft because these aircraft that I fly are actually stored in hangars overnight. And the only time they come out is when they're actually going to be flown, so we don't normally have those in there. But I'll look inside here, inside the intake, and just make sure there's no bird nests or anything like that. Nothing out of the ordinary in there. Yeah, you can see the belt. You can't really see it from here, but there's a belt that goes around there, like connected to the alternator, and just to make sure that the belt looks nice and clean and it's not frayed or anything like that. I'll move my hand up and down the prop blade on the front of it, on both props here. Make sure there's no nicks and cracks or anything like that. And I'll just tap on the nose cone here, make sure that's all nice and secure. Look for any cracks around any of the screws here. And then we've got the air intake with the air filter. We just make sure that it's clear. There's nothing obstructing it at all. And we have the exhaust pipe. Make sure it's all looking good. Once again, I'll push against the cowling to make sure that it's down secure. And then I'll check the oil here. Just open that. And obviously we just check the oil levels and make sure the oil levels are good. I'm not sure how to return the oil. Oh, there we go. Okay, excellent. And then I'll just put my hand on this handle here and then my left on this handle here, and I'll pull myself up and actually look at the fuel tank on top. I'll take the fuel cap off, visually inspect to see how much fuel is on board. It's usually full. I'll need to visually check that anyway. And then once I've seen that, I'll put the fuel cap back on and make sure the fuel cap's aligned with the airflow, which I'll show you from an overhead view later because I don't think you can climb up here during the pre-flight. Once I get back down, I'll inspect these two air intakes here. And these are for ventilation in the aircraft. So these sort of vents that you can see in there, there's one about here somewhere, and this is where they all come through, the air. And I'll make sure it's not tied down. If it's tied down, I'll undo the tie there. If there's chocks, I'll get to that shortly. And also I'll rub my hand along the side of the leading edge here just to make sure there's no dents or bumps or anything like that. It's usually covered in a lot of bugs. And then I'll just rub my hand around the side here. Make sure it's all nice and smooth. And I move that up, the aileron. Inside here, there are actually 3 counterweights. I'm pretty sure it's 3 or 4. I think it's 3. There's 3 counterweights built inside here, and I'll actually make sure that they're all in there. Also, I'll just make sure that the hinges are all secure properly. This one as well. And I'll hold that up with my one hand, and I'll put my fingers on this. I'll just turn it left and right to make sure that it's secure. And also make sure those hinges are secure. Not only that, when I move this aileron, make sure the other one, so we can see it, make sure the other one does the opposite. And we'll stand in a position where you can see the control column. Can you see the control column in the flight deck there? Not really. Yeah, let's see if you can see it. I'd look at the control column as well to make sure that it's going in the right direction. Even though we can't see it, just assume that we have. Also, the static wicks on the end, just sort of put my fingers either side of it, just make sure they're kind of they're secure. And I'd push against the flaps to make sure they're secure. You just sort of move back and forth a bit. Check to make sure that the tracks are all clear. Make sure that's secure. You can't really see it here, but you can see it. There's a screw through it with a piece of metal through it just holding it in place, so make sure that it's all there. And fuel drain. There are 5 spots on this wing. There's that one, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you drain a little bit of fuel into the fuel drainer to make sure there's no dirty bits or water or anything in the fuel tank. And obviously if there's any chocks, you'll remove the chocks. And once again, look to make sure the tyre is inflated properly. And obviously I mentioned tie down earlier, but once again, just check and make sure that you removed any tie down if it's tied down. After that, just come back here and just quickly, I have a finger on either side of the antenna, just flick my fingers back and forth just to make sure that the antenna is secure. I'll do the same for that one here. Just make sure the antenna is secure. And along the back here, along the side of the fuselage and on top here, I'll have each hand, one hand on either side, and I'll just rub my hands down it as I walk past it, just to feel for any ridges or any warping or anything like that, because when people exceed the aircraft's limitations, it'll sometimes warp the frame and you can feel it. You may not be able to see it, but you can feel it. And I'll do the same here. I'll just feel my hand up there. Rub my hand along the leading edge here. Make sure it's all smooth, no bumps or major dents or anything like that. And with regards to the tail, can we move it? Yep. I'll look at each one of these hinges, these joins, and make sure that the screws are in properly. Underneath, this is the trim tab. This part here, that's the trim. Make sure that that is secure on there. It's not going to come off. Make sure that it works okay. Make sure the other side comes up at the same time. And I haven't heard anyone else mention this, but I'll make sure that when you move the tail, if you can move it, you should be able to move it. You should be able to move it. Make sure the tail doesn't actually make contact with the elevator here. Also, I'll go and check. When you move the tail, you can actually see the joins where the hinges are, and I'd make sure that those hinges are there. Once again, put my fingers either side of the antenna, just sort of flick my fingers just to make sure that the antenna is secure. That side as well. And also the static wick. Make sure that they're on there secure. Check the hinges on this side as well. Make sure they're all intact. Rub my hand along the leading edge of the elevator. And again, I'll rub my hands along the side of the top and the side as I move forward. Check to make the door that is actually secure. Make sure it's not going to pop open in flight. Even though, because of the direction it opens, even if it was to unlock while you're in flight, it'll keep closed. So it's not too big an issue, but obviously you want it to be closed. The antenna, just move fingers either side of it just to make sure that the antenna is secure. You can see the fuel cap. And the fuel cap is facing towards the airflow. Same with the other one. And you just check the flaps. Have a look on top here. Make sure you can see that they're secure. You sort of move it back and forth. There should be a little bit of movement, but not a lot. And we'll get to the chocks when we get to the other side. Once again, ailerons. Let's just try and go underneath it. Can we go underneath it? All right, just push that up. Once again, look for the counterweights. Pretty sure it's 3 or 4. I'm certain it's 3. And they're kind of long. So make sure they're still intact. And once again, check the hinges. And again. More hinges. Alright, walk up to the flaps here. You just sort of make sure that it's a little bit of movement, but not a lot, but secure. Check the tracks. We will pull the chocks now. We're next to the wheel. Make sure the wheel is not flat. No oil or hydraulic fluid on the ground or anything like that, because, you know, we need that for the braking. And once again, we do draining the fuel, just to check the fuel from 5 spots again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we'll check the fuel. It should be a light blue color with no water. Now, water is heavier than avgas. So if there is any water, it'll be not only clear, but it'll be at the bottom of the fuel strainer or fuel drainer. So it'll be visible. And I find it best if you hold it up against just the fuselage, because if it's a white fuselage, you can clearly see the blue colour. It stands out very well. Very easy to see. Just come back out here. All right, I'll just check the leading edge. I'll rub my hand along the leading edge. That is the stall warning. You want to make sure that it's clear. I do not like sucking on it. I think it's disgusting. But there are devices you can get that you hook up to it and you press it and it'll suck air out of it. But as long as it's clear, it's going to work. So I'll just make sure that it's visually clear. Now, this is something that's really important that I never hear people talk about, is this thing here. That is your fuel vent. So this needs to be open or not blocked in order for the fuel to flow to the engine, because as the fuel drains from the fuel tank, air needs to take place of that fuel that's been drained or burnt. So if that's blocked, the fuel's not going to flow very well. In fact, it might even stop. It probably won't stop, but it won't flow as well. But I've experienced in real life where these were actually blocked when the aircraft was parked on the ground due to insects. I was down in Louisiana one summer. I was picking up a Cessna 152, and this fuel vent was actually blocked with mud. There was some sort of local insect that made a little home in it and filled it with mud, and I had to get a little piece of metal to scrape out the mud, because if that's blocked, the fuel is not going to flow very well, and you don't want that. All right, so I rub my hand down the leading edge some more, and remove the pitot cover. And you actually just check the pitot cover to make sure that there's nothing blocking it there. And I don't know if it'll depict it in this. I doubt it will. But on the back of it, there's a drainage port. It's like a tiny little hole back there. You want to make sure that that's clear as well. All right, now we're back where we started. So now I'd put my hand on that handle, my left foot on this here, and my right foot I'll put up here, and I'll check the fuel levels in this tank. So I'll take off the fuel cap, visually check the fuel level. Usually pretty good. Put the fuel cap back on, and once again make sure the fuel cap is aligned with the airflow. And that is my pre-flight inspection. So let's go inside. See if we can see the fuel caps. There we go. So you can see the fuel caps are actually aligned with the airflow, or where the air would flow. So that looks good. And also when you're up there, you can actually visually check the GPS antenna. Just make sure that it's clear. So yeah, pretty cool. And the last thing I'd do is, now you can do this before you do the other pre-flight, and that is check all the lights. So what I'll do is I'll put there's no power yet, beacon light, landing light, taxi light, nav lights and strobes. Now you don't want to leave them on while you're doing your whole pre-flight, because you don't want to waste battery, because also you're going to have your screen on when you put the battery on. So just put the battery on quickly, go outside again. I'll just quickly walk around and I'll go, oh, is the strobe on? Yep. It's not very bright. They need to fix that, but it's on. I think the nav light looks like it's on. All right, those two are working. Excellent. Oop, oh. Okay, I think that's meant to be on. Yep, the strobe's on there. Excellent. There should be a white tail at the back. White light on the tail. Beacon light's on, that's excellent. And I think it's on. I'm not sure. We'll assume that it's on. In real life, you better tell. And if you have an aircraft that has an electric stall warning, you would check that as well. So I'll just quickly turn the power off. Just quickly switch all the lights back off. And that is how you do a pre-flight inspection. Or that's how I do a pre-flight inspection on the Cessna 172 in real life. And that's all there is to it. It's actually pretty straightforward. And if in doubt, you can always make reference to the pilot's flight manual as well. And it demonstrates how to do the pre-flight inspection as well and what to look for. Although I think in the flight manual it says to do it in your opposite direction, which is fine. I don't think there's any right or wrong way of doing it. As long as you just check all those points, I think you'll be in good hands. And obviously, once you've done your visual inspection and once you start up the engine, you would also check to verify the fuel levels indicate what you saw visually in the tanks as well. Now, if the fuel was this low, you wouldn't actually be able to see much fuel in there. You'd be able to see that there is some in there. But when it's full, obviously, the indicators will be up here. Sorry. Anyway, that's all there is to it. And I hope you got something out of this video. And thank you for watching. And I'll see you later. Well, g'day folks, Ashley here from Ground Speed Gaming, and today I'm going to do a flight in a Cessna 172, as you can see, the G1000 version. I'm going to do a flight from Prescott to Winslow in Arizona. It's actually not too far away, but it takes us over some really nice scenery and some nice places worth visiting if you ever get a chance to go to Arizona. So we'll just get started here. Well, actually, even before we start the engine, there is a couple of things I want to go over. And first of all, just having a quick look at the weather here. Prescott, this is where we are right now. And obviously, I've switched the time to early in the morning, so we're going to get better performance for this aircraft, because you're going to need as much performance as we can get. However, this is the real weather at this moment. So it's light winds, 10 miles visibility clear, etc., etc. It's looking good. So we're fine there. This is Prescott. And Winslow is even better. I'll just refresh just to make sure. Yep. As you can see, there's not really any issue with potential fog or anything like that. Even though the winds are light, temperature is 1 degree Celsius. The dew point is minus 17, so we're good. Forecast variable winds, unlimited visibility, sky's clear, awesome. So we're really good there. Weather is not an issue. Prescott does have a few NOTAMs, however, they're not really going to be affecting us, especially being in a sim. But you've got to be aware of them, you know, if you're going to go treat flying realistically. We're going to plan on takeoff from 2-1 left because that's the longer runway. Instrument approach procedures, we're not really worried about that because we're actually departing. But in real life, you would sort of keep it in mind if you had to return to the field. So I'm not going to worry about that. The optical departure clearance is something we are doing. I'm not going to be doing radar vectors. However, we are going to 2-1 left. It's a minimum required climb gradient is 448 feet per nautical mile, and instrument departures, SIDS and all that stuff are based on 200 feet per minute. So you do need a decent rate of climb. 2-1 right, no, that's 2-1 right. We're going 2-1 left. 2-1 right. This has obstacles normally, just the light poles in the way it's built, but that's okay. Obstacle departure clearance. One of them would actually affect us in real life. This one would actually affect us in real life. Departure procedure is not available except for aircraft equipped with suitable RNAV systems or GPS, because the Drake VOR, which is what we're going to be using today, is actually in op as of actually today, 10 a.m. East Coast time this morning, until the 17th of December 2024. So yeah, so actually in real life you have to have GPS, but being in the sim, we're actually going to use the Drake VOR. That's all that would really affect us here in Prescott. And Winslow, there are actually 2 NOTAMs, but the obstacle light, I'm not worried about that. The VOR GPS approach, runway 11, which is what we're planning on doing. I'll be doing a VOR, not GPS, but it's the same actual route. It affects helicopters visibility, so we're not a helicopter, so that does not affect us, but this actually is something we need to keep in mind. The MSA, or the Vortac, 25 nautical miles. The MSA in one sector is 8,100 feet instead of 7,800 feet, so there's probably some obstacle. But besides that, no announcements are going to affect us. So this is the route we're going to take. We're going to go from Prescott, follow the departure clearance, obstacle departure procedure, which takes us out this way a bit. And then we'll circle around to Drake. Our MSA, because this is an IFR flight, however, we will be visual the whole time. The MSA is 10,100 feet. So I'm planning on climbing to 11,000 feet, traveling eastbound on Victor 12, Victor 12, or Victor 264. Go by either one. And obviously the MSA after Oates is increased to 10,800 feet. So that's why I'm going to go to 11,000 feet, and it's hemispherical. And from the VOR here at Winslow, we're going to make an approach into Winslow Airport. And somewhere around here, near the Winslow Airport, is the Meteor Crater. And it is freaking awesome. It looks really good in the sim. And it looks even better, obviously, in real life. But the flight's also going to take us directly over the Sedona Airport. So that'll be something worth seeing as well. All right, so obviously I've started up, done the test and arm switch, and that's brought up a pre-FD. The beacon light is on, nav lights are on. Engine indicating systems, we've got to check that. Zoom in a little bit so we can see it a bit better. And we go to discharge, that's fine, that's okay. Brakes, just make sure the brakes are set. The brakes are on. Normally you keep your foot on the pedals, but I use the handbrake in the sim only. The prop is clear. Master on. Master battery, and I'll put the alternator on as well. Beacon light is on. The fuel pump we're going to put on just momentarily. And oh, mixture's reached already. I left that there by mistake. Fuel pump's on. You should get fuel flow. Hang on. Well, there should be fuel flow, but that's okay. And mixture lean. I should have actually had it lean before I did that. Okay, so we've got to do the start the mags. And then as soon as it kicks in, then we richen the mixture. So you yell out the window, clear prop. Anyway, oil pressure is up. That's good. That's what we want. That's very important. If the oil pressure doesn't rise within 30 seconds, you've got to shut it down because you're going to damage the engine. The amps looking good. Annunciators, they're all gone. Lights, put the taxi light on. The mixture, let's actually just check that. There's 1,000 RPM. We'll pull it. We'll lean the mixture back a bit. We should increase RPM a little bit. As soon as it drops off, yep. Okay, there we go. That's enough. In reality, I think you'd probably lean it a little bit more, but the idea is there. You do, after you immediately start the engine, you do need to lean the mixture, even for taxiing at these elevations, because obviously, as you can see, we are near 5,000 feet. Avionics 1 and 2 on. And the engine instrumentation will come across to this screen here. Today is December 10. And normally, obviously, you would check the date to make sure that it's valid. This is saying November 28th. Right, December 26th. I'm not sure. It's displayed differently in real life, so I'm not sure. We'll just pretend that it's all valid. But you do need to check that when you start her up. Especially if you're doing a check ride, you know. But even just any day use, everyday use. All right, for pre-taxi, seatbelts set. Flaps, they are actually up. Avionics, they are on. ATIS and AWOS, okay, we're going to need to get that. So ATIS is 127.2. Activate it.
Prescott Airport information, Quebec 1500 Zulu. Wind 270 at tree. Visibility 10. Sky condition clear. Temperature 6. Dew point 10. Altimeter tree 0 tree 7. ILS runway 21 left and visual runway 21 right in use. Landing and departing runway 21 left and runway 21 right. VFR aircraft say direction of flight. All aircraft read back hold short instructions. Advise controller on initial contact. You have Quebec.
All right. Excellent.
Prescott Airport information, Romeo 1500 Zulu. Prescott Airport.
I guess it didn't detect that I'd switched frequencies. Okay. So we're going to go for runway 21 left. And it's there. And the wind's from 270. So it's slight crosswind of, well, it's a 3 knot wind. So it's probably 2 knot crosswind. So we're going to be fine. All right, so we've got the ATIS. The altimeter was 3037, so let's change that. Barometric is the outer one. Oh, sorry, this one. 3037. Very high pressure system. 3037, and the elevation is... sorry, I just got to bring it up again just so I can look at it. 5,045 feet. Excellent. So that's within 75 feet. That's an IFR requirement, and we are doing an IFR flight today. So, excellent. 3037 is set, and obviously I'd need to set it down here too. It looks like it actually set it for me. Obviously in real life, if that doesn't happen, you have to separately adjust that as well. Excellent. Well, that makes it easy. Just don't fall into that trap in real life. Altimeter, transponder, we're going to leave that for the moment. ADS-B, that's on. That's actually part of the transponder. Radio test, well, we'll pretend the radios work. Taxi lights on. Brake test we'll do in a minute. The altitude indicator, turn coordinate, and HSI compass test we'll check shortly. Alright, so let's just turn the brakes off. Head to runway 21 left. And let's go. Get better visibility. Alright, first of all, hit my brakes. Excellent, my brakes work. Oop. I still don't taxi this thing as well as I do in real life. Mind you, my seat's got wheels on it, so that doesn't help, so my seat swivels around. Alright, so we're doing a right turn, left skid, HSI is turning in the correct direction. And compass is freely rotating and the HSI remains level. Left turn, right skid, HSI is turning in the correct direction. Compass is freely swinging and the HSI remained level. Of course, I should be checking the standby one as well. It looks like it's staying level. Excellent. Alright, that's the taxi test. It's good so far. We'll do a run up down the end of this taxiway here. 21 left is the one that's down here on the right, and obviously that's 21 right down there, which requires a bit of backtracking actually. And it's not quite as short a runway. That's not quite as long a runway, so that's the other reason I'm using 21 left. And also with regards to 21 right, when you take off, you actually fly over the parking area where all the aircraft are parked, and they have light poles. And in the middle of summer when you're climbing out, you don't get a very high climb rate, and you kind of have to be aware of that and sort of turn to avoid them. Yeah, it's not a good design, especially for these elevations. Believe me, I flew the Piper Warrior out of here, and in the fuel tanks they have a tab, and whenever you got fuel, you always told them, only fill it up to the tab. If you went with full fuel with one other person on board, like your check examiner, there's no way you're going to get off the ground in the middle of summer. The elevation is 5,000 feet, but in the middle of summer here, the density altitude, it was kind of like flying out of an airport at 8,000 feet. So the performance was really bad in summer. All right, let's just do a run up here. This will do. The winds are so light, doesn't matter which direction we're facing. Yeah, it would be blocking someone potentially, but it's okay. We won't be long. Alright, for the run-up, brakes are set. Fuel selectors, we're going to put those on. They're on both. Trim. That's set for takeoff. And flight controls, we'll just bring those back just momentarily. Make sure we got full controls here. Left and right pedals. We know the pedals work because we've been using them. And they look free and correct. And you're also making sure, because you'll have your knee board and stuff, you want to make sure that the control column doesn't hit your knee or things like that. So you might have to lower the seat maybe. Okay, let's see. Trim, controls, instruments. Instruments, there's no red X's or anything like that, so that's good. The altimeter is set to 3037, both the primary and the standby, and they're both within 75 feet. Fantastic. Standby altimeter is, yep, that's set. The cap 140, okay, the autopilot, we're going to test that. So just push the button in for the heading bug, and that'll bring it straight to your current heading. Put the autopilot on and put on heading. Turning heading indicator to the left. Oh yeah, I'm going to show you that it's working. Yep. Okay, see if it turns to the right. Which it is, and you make sure you can turn it off. Yep. Excellent. Oh, yep, turn it off, that's it. Awesome, that works. And obviously the other thing is, I don't know if it's depicted in this. No, you can't pull it out. But normally you would, if for whatever reason you couldn't shut it down, you just pull the circuit breaker on the autopilot. I've not had to do that in real life, but that's why it's actually highlighted, so it's a quick, easy find for the pilot. If for whatever reason this button doesn't work to autopilot disconnect, or this one, that's why that's highlighted, and it's easy to pull it out. Because you might get into a situation where you have runaway trim or something like that, so that's what that's about. Anyway, let's see what else is there. Standby instruments are good. Mixture is leaned, and we'll lean again once we get up to cruise level. Manual electric trim. So that's actually these ones here. Gotta make sure this is working. Yep. See, they both work. They have to both be used. If you only use one or the other, it doesn't work. It's purposely done that way so that you have to use both buttons to set it. And without electric trim, you cannot have altitude hold, so that's very important. And once we're going to go to 11,000 feet. Cap on off, standby instruments, mixture, manual electric trim. Okay, well now we're going to do the run up. So let's quickly go to 1800 RPM. Almost there. There we go. Alright, it's a little bit over there, but that's okay. So we're going to go to the left. Magneto. That's fine, it's pretty stable. Go back to both. That's not too much of a drop. Let's go to right. Yeah, that's okay. And they're both within 50 of each other. Back to both. Vacuum indicator. The vacuum indicator is there, and that's in the green, and that actually powers this standby artificial horizon. This artificial horizon is powered by something else. I believe it's laser gyros, not a traditional vacuum system, but that is the vacuum operated one. The engine indicators, the fuel flow is good, oil pressure is good, oil temperature is good, vacuum's good, fuel is fine for what we're doing today, and electrical looks good. Amps and volts are okay. Annunciators, we don't have any annunciators at the moment. Go back to idle. Make sure the engine doesn't stop upon idling. It is good, so let's go back to 1000 RPM. Oops, a little bit over, but that's okay. Mixture is leaned. Throttle friction, this is the sim, we don't need to worry about that, but that is actually this knob around the throttle there, just to make sure through engine vibration the RPM does not change. FMS, GPS. Alright, so what we're going to do is, I'll quickly plug this in. This is the actual route we're doing. and by magic, it'll just appear through editing. Okay, run-up checks are done. For the pre-takeoff, flaps, we're not going to use any flaps. The mixture is set. Pitot heat, not required. Transponder, we'll put on altitude. We're going to leave it on 1200, even though we're a pretend IFR flight, that's okay. Heading bug is actually set to 205. That's part of our departure procedure. I'll brief that in just a moment. The doors and windows are closed. Landing light is on. Strobes can come on. And we'll take off in just a moment. I'll just quickly give you a rundown for the departure procedure. The obstacle departure procedure out of Prescott 3 departure. And we're on 2-1 left, so we need a minimum climb of 430 feet per nautical mile up to 8,200 feet. Or visual climb over the airport. So 2-1 left, climb heading 205 until 7,300 feet, and then climbing right turn direct to the Vortac, back to the Drake VOR. And that's tuned and identified already. And once we get to the Vortac, we're going to track 305 outbound to 9,000 feet. Then continuing climbing on course. Other aircraft climbing right turn, direct back to the Vortac, and then the assigned course. So we're going to get airborne, take up a heading of 205 until we get to 7,300 feet, track direct to the Navaid, go outbound on 305, and then track back to the Vortac and track 061 outbound. Whew. Yes, that's what we're going to do. Yep, there's a lot to it, but that's okay. That's what we're going to do. So here we go. Put that there. Oh, actually, I'll need that. Get rid of that. I'll put that back. So here we go. And I'm not going to do any proper radio comms or anything like that. I'm just pretending it's all CTEF all the way, even though this is a Class Delta towered airport. But you'll notice here how slow this thing is to accelerate at this elevation. I can assure you the performance difference is very noticeable in real life. It's 2-1 left. Excellent. That's what we have. Compass is reading good, so let's go. RPM's up. Computer struggling. Runway's clear. Airspeed is alive. See how it's not accelerating as quickly. But it is accelerating. Alright, 55, let's begin a rotate. Come on, let's get off the ground, mate. Come on. And stay in ground effect as long as you can. Just to accelerate. There we go. We're accelerated enough now. Alright, so let's actually just stick on the autopilot with heading mode. Heading. Oh, that will change. No, I don't want to sink. I don't want to sink. And we need our best rate of climb, which is 74 knots. Should have reset this. Alright, so this is heading 205. Might be better if I take my foot off the rudders. This is our best rate of climb. That's actually a lot higher than I expected. Or not. So we're going to keep climbing until we get to 7,300 feet. And we've got Drake, Nav1 and Nav2, both tuned and identified. The bearing indicator is actually pointing directly to the Navaid, and we'll continue to update. So as soon as we get to 7,300 feet, we're going to make a right-hand turn and track direct to the bearing indicator. Then, once we get to the Navaid, track outbound on that radial there, 305, until we get to 9,000 feet. Just like the departure procedure requests. 6,000 feet, 1,300 feet to go. And flying right over the Embry-Riddle campus, I can tell by the driveway there. They've done a really great job with this area. Even though this is Flight Sim 2020, it still looks really good. Although I must admit, I don't remember seeing any aircraft actually flying over the campus when I was actually at school. So maybe the departure procedures changed since then. I don't know. I actually used to live up here, this area up here. Alright, almost 7,300 feet. Keeping on indicators. It's all looking good so far. And Thumb Butte will be somewhere up in front of us up there. It's some great hiking up there, and obviously we've got Granite Mountain, which is just behind the pillar there. It's off to our right. You'll see that better shortly. Yeah, I don't ever remember flying this procedure back in the day. Alright, we're almost at 7,300 feet. And we're getting kind of close to the mountain, so climb grade, the rate we're climbing is actually a lot better than I expected. Alright. 7,300, okay, let's start our right turn. And we want to go to where the bearing indicator is pointing, which is directly to the nav aid. The rudder pedals on this thing are a bit oversensitive. Alright. And it's turning quicker than rate 1 on the autopilot. That's the other thing I don't like about this autopilot, is it goes much faster than rate 1. Okay, we're tracking directly to the nav aid. Once we get to the nav aid, which is 6.8 nautical miles away, we need to track outbound on that track until we get to 9,000 feet. Then make a right turn, direct back to the nav aid, then track outbound 061. Hopefully we can get to 9,000 before we even get there. That'll be good. And that's Granite Mountain off to our left. Excellent hiking up there. Really nice area for hiking. And there was a film made, it would have been in the late 80s. It was called Creepshow 2, which is a series of short films. And one of them, titled The Raft, was actually filmed really in this proximity of Granite Mountain somewhere. So there's a lake somewhere down there. I think it's around this side somewhere where they filmed The Raft. So you can see parts of Granite Mountain in the background in the actual film. It's actually pretty cool. Alright, that's cool. We're going to make 9,000 feet before we actually get there. That's great. So we can track 061. Instead of having to go outbound on 305. Uh, 061. There we go. So that's our intended course. And we still have 4 miles to go. Although by the time we get there, we're probably almost going to be about a mile above it, so it'll indicate about 1. As DME is actually slant range versus GPS distance is actually range along the ground. You'll see these numbers actually differ fairly soon. See, they're already differing. And the gap between the two will actually increase the closer we get. As DME has a transmitter on board the aircraft, and it sends a signal from the aircraft to the receiver on the ground and then sends a signal back. Actually supposed to be tracking direct to the nav aid, so so DME actually measures the distance between the aircraft and the actual nav aid on the ground, as opposed to GPS, which is actually distance along the ground. So that's why it's going to slightly differ. I know I've mentioned that in many other videos, but pretty sure you don't watch all of them. Alright, so I think we can do the climb takeoff checklist. So throttle set, mixture is lean, instruments are looking good so far, taxi and Landing lights can come off. Flight plan, it's open. We'll pretend we've contacted departures or is it Albuquerque Center in this area? Yep, very good. Actually, I do need the heading a bit to the left of the track because of the wind. Still got a pretty good rate of climb, 500 feet. That's good. And also the moving map is showing the track 061 once we get overhead the navode, so it's looking good there. And you have almost 800 feet to go. Obviously, we're just past our MEA for the first sector, but the second part of the sector is 10,800 feet. So we are safe to go on the first sector. And it's a beautiful area. It's turned up really well in Flight Sim 2020. This is pretty much what it looks like. Alright, let's go to the outbound track. Just wait for that. Pick up the needle, the HSI, we'll pick it up again in a minute. We're in a cone of confusion, so there's not really any signal directly above it. It radiates in all directions around it, but not directly above it. There we go. So, tail of the needle is to the left of the track that we want, so we want to go to the right of that track. And also the needle's indicating that as well. HSI needle. And I don't want to do too big an intercept because we are very, very close to the navode. As you can see, it's just behind us. As you can see with the heading indicator, where it's heading, it's actually not going to be long before we intercept. And there it is, right there. And I overshot it. And we are approaching 11,000 feet. Now I don't want to chase the HSI needle with the nav mode because it violently chases it. Autopilot's not very smart in this thing. Alright, so we're accelerating now. It's lower the nose. It's excellent. It's a few clouds. Okay. Outside temperature is 0, so we will pick up icing. That's not allowed. Alright. Just pull that throttle back to 25. Just to give the engine a little bit of a rest. Well, not strain it as much. And let's see if we can land it a bit more. Actually, I'll switch to nav mode just a moment first. Switch to VOR nav mode now. Bearing 2, okay. That's right, that's right. Alright, let's lean the mixture further. Since we've gained some altitude, let's just keep an eye on that RPM. See if we gain any more RPM out of it. Yep. I think that's about it. That's okay. It's leaned a bit more. Cruise checklist power set mixture is lean. Instruments are looking good. So what I'll do is actually see if we can go to nav 2. Activate nav 2. Winslow VOR, it's picked it up. And okay, so let's see. Bearing 2, I want nav 2. There we go. So that's pointing towards the Winslow, and that one's pointing towards Drake. And going by GPS, we're expecting to be at Winslow 43 minutes. Excellent. Very good. That's going to be about 1613 Zulu. Yeah, these clouds are not looking good, so that was something I did not anticipate. Increase throttle. See if we can climb above these clouds, because at these temperatures it is actually going to cause ice on the aircraft, and we are legally not allowed to fly in icing conditions. I don't want to slow down too much, so we have a positive rate, so 86 is fine. I don't need to go to 74 for best rate. I will if I have to. Yeah, maybe I should. .74 knots, that's our best rate. Also indicated by the VY there. There's no way you'd get this rate of climb, this elevation. No way, but we'll accept it. I would never expect to get this. This is what I'd expect to get in the middle of summer when you're actually getting airborne out of Prescott. Not at this elevation, but it's okay. That's all right. So I've set 13,000. Slow climb. And we are above our MEA, so that's all good there. We do have quite a crosswind too. So we're tracking 061 and with a heading of 50, so that's 11 degrees. And mind you, we are going slower, so we're more vulnerable. Larger correction angles required. And the wind is showing 26 degrees. It's almost 26 knots direct crosswind, really. Before 1, yeah, almost. Wow. So at these speeds, 26, half is about 13, so it's almost a half degree for every knot of crosswind. Alright, I think we're going to be okay at 13,000. Alright, it's looking good out there. I'm not sure what the name of these mountains are just here, but Jerome, the small mining town of Jerome, sits on the other side of this hill, halfway down the hill. It's a great place to visit if you're ever in Arizona. Absolutely love going there. It's a very old school tourist attraction. And I love going to the Haunted Hamburger restaurant, and they've got a haunted hotel on top of the hill up at Jerome. I've never actually stayed there, but I'll have to give it a go one day. As you'll see when we get on the other side of the hill. Just turn the volume down a little bit. There's sound. It's pretty loud. Alright, we're going to be just skimming the tops of these clouds. I think we're going to be alright. Excellent. I actually didn't anticipate any clouds. See, we're -3 Celsius, so yeah, we can't find those clouds. We'll have to find a gap in the clouds to descend though. It's going to be interesting. And approaching the fix dirty, which is at 15 DME. Yep, there we go, we just passed it. Can we see Jerome? Just level off first. Go. Moving off. Allow it to accelerate. And you'll see the wing correction angle will probably change because we're picking up speed. It won't have to be as big as an angle. So it'll probably go to the right as a guess. We might be able to land it a bit more. Actually, we'll set it to 2500 RPM. It's not accelerating much more than this. Alright, we're going to be up here for 38 minutes. So, as pilot in command, if we're going to be above 12,500 feet in the United States for more than 30 minutes, which we will be, we're actually required to have oxygen. Now, we don't need to have it for at least 30 minutes. After the 30 minutes, above 12,500 feet, but below 14,000, we are required to have it. You probably should have it anyway at this altitude. So we'll just pretend we've put oxygen on. Looks like we are going to skim top of those clouds. This thing is not going to climb. And our MEA is 10,800. Well, not yet, not yet. It's not until we get to 39 DME. That's when the MEA climbs to 10,800 feet, which will put us right in the clouds. So we kind of put ourselves in a box here. And let's see if we can climb. Actually, we are visual. Normally just tell ATC, or ask ATC, it's like we need to just GB out left the track just to avoid cloud. And this is okay because we are actually visual. So, still on an IFR plan. This poor thing won't climb much higher. Gap right there. Now that is taking us closer to the mountains though, that's, just be wary of that. But we are visual. And this obviously will affect our ETA. See if I can see Jerome before it disappears in the clouds. There's Jerome there. Great town. If you ever get a chance, definitely go visit Jerome. Halfway up that mountain. You take 89A, and that'll take you winding all over this hill. I think that's probably it there. It really winds down the hill. And then it takes you down to Clarkdale, and then Cottonwood's just around about here somewhere. Another airport there. And as you can see, some of the dangers of flying general aviation in IFR conditions, you can get trapped in a box. So we're above the MEA, but yeah. And 10,900 feet's the off-course, off-radial clearance altitude. But in the next sector, although that's a little bit further north, is 14,900, so you got to be wary of that. That's why we've got to stay visual. If I wasn't visual, I wouldn't be doing this. Alright, so be able to just go that way. Yeah, if we went visually, you couldn't really do this, or you just need to have an aircraft that is certified to fly in icing conditions. Yeah, this is actually something I did not anticipate today. I didn't even think about it. So, yep, it's definitely illegal to fly in those clouds, in this aircraft. Anyway. So I'll aim right for that gap, and then we'll try and get back on course. Hopefully we'll get back on course before we get to Sedona, because I wanted to overfly Sedona. It's a lovely area to see from the air. And if you're wondering why I'm flying Flight Sim 2020 instead of Flight Sim 2024, earlier today I went through the recommended procedure of installing or reinstalling Flight Sim 2024. And after doing so, it installed correctly. That was fine. So I set up to do an ILS out of Indianapolis Metro, and I was going to do an ILS into Indianapolis Regional, which is like 5 minutes away. But for whatever reason, upon getting airborne, it would not detect or pick up any ground-based nav aids, or I couldn't even enter GPS procedures in the G1000. So for whatever reason, it was not performing the way it's supposed to. So as a result, I'll be sticking with 2020 for a while yet, just until they iron out all the bugs in 2024. So it shouldn't take too long, because I seem to recall when 2020 first came out, it was a bit of a dog's breakfast as well. So, and it's obviously come a long way since it was first released. So I expect the same for 2024. So it's going to be all good. Just got to be patient. That's all. Now let's see. I can actually descend now. Go back to 11,000. Let's do that. Just pull that throttle back a little bit. We can stay out of these little fluffy clouds too. Once you get past this little line of clouds, I'll get back on track. Sedona's actually just over here. I can tell by the rock formation. So we're not going to fly over the airport. Sorry, guys. And that'd be Mormon Lake over there, and Mormon Mountain. I can just tell by the lake. That's the track we were supposed to be on. Although I think we could track over that way now, actually. Yeah, let's go be this way a bit more. Just to get back on track. Get the views we intended on getting. I'll see there's Sedona down there, just to the left. And the airport is on that large plateau overlooking the whole town. It's great. great airport to fly into. The restaurant there is actually pretty fancy. It's a bit more fancy than the type of restaurants I like to go to, but it's pretty cool. Yeah, there it is there, the Sedona Airport. Now, it looks even better in 2024, but obviously it still looks really good in Flight Sim 2020. Yeah, that should be good there to maintain that until we get on track. This wind is going to blow us right back on the track really quickly. We actually don't need that big an intercept angle. And as soon as the needle is centered, I'll stick it back onto nav mode. 500 feet to go. Yeah, man, I really didn't anticipate those clouds. If the temperature was above freezing, I would have just gone straight through it, but nope. All right, 200 feet to go. Let's just bring the throttle back up to 2500 RPM. There we go, 25. And switch back to nav mode. It might violently chase it momentarily, which is why I waited for it to be centered before I activated the nav mode, because autopilots are not very smart. They just do what you tell them to do. Alright, we're about 26 minutes away, so what I could do is start setting up for the approach. Now we're 49 miles away, and the approach essentially starts at 10 nautical miles from Winslow VOR. So, okay, so what I'll do is we need the ASOS 118875. Right, get ready to write this down.
Kilo India November Whiskey Automated Weather Observation 1500 Zulu. Wind calm. Visibility 10. Sky condition clear. Temperature 2 Celsius. Dew point 10 Celsius. Altimeter 3053. Kilo India November Whiskey Automated Weather Observation 1500 Zulu.
Excellent.
Wind calm. Visibility 10. Sky condition clear. Temperature 2 Celsius.
053.
Dew point 10 Celsius. Altimeter 3053.
053. And it adjusted down there, I imagine, like it did before. Looks like it. If I only did that in real life. That's bringing heading indicator back to our actual heading. Okay. RPM. Okay, so the 6. Okay. The entire route between Drake and Winslow is 86 nautical miles, and there's no designated changeover point on this route, so automatically that means you switch over to the nav aid primarily to Winslow at the halfway point, or the direction you're going, you switch over at halfway point. So that'd be 43 nautical miles. And we're almost there. So we're almost at the halfway point. So as soon as we do the switch over, then I will do the briefing for the approach. So I'll just momentarily go back to heading mode. Okay, we're back on heading mode, just so I can switch over momentarily. Nav 1. 3, halfway point, switched over using the flip-flop switch. So now 112.6 is now active and they're both tuned and identified. Alright, so the course is slightly different, so according to the VFR chart we should be flying over Mormon Lake around about here somewhere. So, and looking at the moving map, that's the wrong way. I always turn that the wrong way. Yeah, we need to be a little bit more to the right. And the needle indicates that as well. As soon as the needle is centered, I'll switch over to nav mode again. According to this GPS, we are right of track now. However, we're actually tracking on the VOR, so I'm primarily following this, just using GPS as a guide more than anything else. Zoom out to about 10. 10 miles is actually quite a handy distance, because actually when the nav aids at 10 miles, we're going to be pretty much starting the approach on the DME arc. So that's actually a good setting to have. Alright, the needle's almost centered. Very, very close. Alright, I'll just stick on nav mode now. It's going to violently chase it. As silly as it is, but it'll settle down momentarily. There we go. It's settled down now. Okay, so we're going to do the VOR GPS runway 11 using the VOR into Winslow in Arizona. We've got the ASOS, we already know what's going on there. And we're going to be tracking to intercept somewhere along here the DME arc. So we're currently tracking on the 242 radial to Winslow. .242, it's obviously going to be, that's 278, that's 195, so we're going to be somewhere around here on this current radial. We'll intercept this 10 DME arc. Once we are on the DME arc, we can descend to 8,100 feet. Expect to intercept from this point here. What's the name of that? I don't know, but we'll intercept the 278 radial, but we'll be tracking 098 inbound. Once we're inbound, we can track, actually we can go to 7,000 feet and then descend down to, so once we're established we can go to 7,000 feet, or actually established we can go down to 6,200 feet. Upon passage of the station, we can then descend down to our NBA of 5,340, or just call it 5,400. For Australian approach runway 11 because the winds are calm. And missed approach points at 3.8 DME past the nav aid. For missed approach procedure, we're going to climb straight ahead to 6,000 feet and then continue with the climbing right turn to 7,000 feet directly back to the Winslow VOR, and we intercept the hold there. It's depicted up here, and that would be a teardrop entry. However, we're awesome and we're going to get in. So, yeah. Let's put that aside. So that's the approach we're going to be doing. And we'll be making reference to this DME here. The DME for the actual Navo, not GPS. Although they're going to be very similar. So we can actually load the procedure, select approach, VOR DME runway 11. We'll just call it vectors because we're going to be intercepting partway through it. Turn the mins on the barometric. 5340. Oh, this takes a while, this. So what I'm doing here is I'm selecting the procedure in the GPS so it can guide us to specific fixes using the GPS if we want to. It's a nice thing to have as a backup. Not to mention it is actually a GPS approach as well. 5340 is what we want. Takes a while. Okay, I want to make sure I get it correct. Look at that. 5340. Now load it? No, let's actually activate it. It's not approved for GPS. GPS guidance is for monitoring only. Load approach. Yes, that's okay. You get that warning in your life. So the final approach fix is actually the Navo. Overhead the Navo. So we're going to be tracking to the 10 DME arc. So if you want to picture it on here, the course is 098 inbound, so that's 09, that's 100, so 098 is about there. So picture that's the Navade there, that's the direction we're going to track. But before we get to the Navade, we're going to be, say that's the 10 DME arc. We're going to intercept 10 DME arc, your left turn, track it 098 to the Navade, and then continue on 098. If that's 10 DME, it's only going to be about there. So yeah. Back before we had moving maps, this was your moving map. You just had to visualize it in your head. But it's pretty easy. So yeah, just imagine the VOR is actually the center there. This is the actual radial we're on right now. We're down here. Get to the 10 DME arc. Intercept it. Track 098 inbound to the station, and then 098 from land at the airport. Pretty straightforward. So we've got a little bit of time yet, so let's just enjoy some of the views, eh? And you can see the meteor crater is actually right about there. I'll be willing to bet our approach starts right about the meteor crater for the 10 DME arc. Yeah, there's some noticeable differences in the satellite photography here versus over here. Clearly defined here, but it still looks really good, you know. So that'd be Flagstaff up there. Mormon Lake, Mormon Mountain as we just flew over. And Jerome's all back there, Sedona. And obviously beyond that is obviously Prescott. It's a pretty amazing sim. It's really cool. And you can see we've still got 22 miles to go for the actual nav 8 itself, but the approach starts at 10 DME for us on the DME arc. So with regards to this, to initiate getting onto the DME arc, we're going to be doing a left-hand turn, 90 degrees at 11 DME, and then we'll just follow the DME arc around to the 098 to the station, and then outbound 098 to the airport. Just quickly check, see if anything's changed.
Kilo India November Whiskey Automated Weather Observation 1600 Zulu. Wind 260 at 4. Visibility 10. Sky condition clear. Temperature -3 Celsius. Dew point 10 Celsius. Altimeter 3044. Kilo India November Whiskey Automated Weather Observation 1600 Zulu. Wind 260 at 4. Visibility.
Okay, the wind has changed. We could do a circling approach to 22. Or actually just circle the runway 29er. Yeah, we'll do runway 29er. So we'll do a circling approach. So that's 5420. So what we do is here. I'm not going to enter that again. It didn't save it. That's all right. We just have to remember what the means are. Didn't save it. Ah, crap. So whatever your barometric settings are for the your limit, your MDA, it'll actually save it there. But for whatever reason, when I set it, it didn't save it. Oh well. So we'll do a landing approach for runway 29er. And the new altimeter is 3044. So barometric is the outer one, so that's this one. It's a big change actually. 3044. And we check that. Yeah, it updated automatically. Thanks. If only it did that in real life. And I fly the approaches at 80 knots. So when we start our descent, we'll actually have to pull the throttle back just to keep the speed at 80. Even at 90 knots, it's okay in the arc and whatnot. But just within a mile or so of the final approach fix, you want to bring it down to 80. So we're showing 16 DME. So at 11, we'll make our left-hand turn, 90 degrees. And once we're established in the DME arc, we can descend to 8,100 feet. So I'll do that. 8,100. We're not going to descend yet until we're in the arc. It's going to maintain this 11,000 for the time being. There's the meteor crater. I was thinking it was at 10 DME, but obviously it's not. Doesn't that look awesome? So you got Interstate 40, which is I think it's that one. I know it's up here, but I think that's it there depicted there. Interstate 40, which I took from Arizona all the way to Virginia when I moved to Virginia from Arizona. But you take this little road and it takes you down to the little touristy spot right there. I am not sure if people can go down inside the crater. I've never actually been there. I've flown over it in real life. Obviously, this is what it looks like. It looks really good in this sim. Even though it's flights in 2020, not 2024, it still looks really cool. Alright, I better check to see the approach. Where are we? 13 DME, okay, so we've got a little bit of time. It's hard to see when you barely make it out there. Sorry, folks, we've got to stay inside now because we've got to do this approach. It looks really cool. Alright, so on 1 mile, we're going to make a left-hand turn, 90 degrees. So that'll be heading of about 330 will be fine. I just use these lubber markers, 45 degree markers, 90 degree markers as a point where I go to. Let's go to heading mode. And there's 11 DME, so okay, let's go. Do that. And the course inbound is 0982. That's what we want. So think of that as the nav aid. That's the track we want to fly. That's the track we want to fly. It's just think of that little marker as where the airport is at the moment. And the tail of the needle is the bearing indicator showing where we are in relation to this track. And we're at 10.5 DME, 10.6. So we are increasing. So let's turn the heading in a bit more. Out there. That should be good. And obviously the moving map's also depicting the actual track we want to fly as well. But I actually fairly rarely make reference to that. So we just keep an eye on this DME. And we can actually descend down to 8,100 feet, so let's do that. And I'll pull that throttle back. And I should have actually done my pre-landing checks. .7. We've only got 1 mile as a tolerance, so this is actually not a very good DMR. Descent power set mixture. We're not going to fully reach it. Fuel selectors on both. We have the ATIS. FD's set. Standby and altimeter is also set. Autopilot we're currently using. I'm going to point that actually directly to the fix. Numbers slowly coming back. And when the bearing indicator actually matches up with this, that's when you know we're on track. So when it's 10 degrees away from that, you'll know the needle will start moving. That's why I love bearing indicators. It actually gives you a good heads up. We're all set for the time being. Pre-landing checks, we could probably do those now. Brakes are set off. Let's just put the taxi lights and landing lights on. Autopilot currently is. The seatbelts set. Mixture is fine. Fuel selectors on both. The flaps we're going to adjust as necessary. Alright, we're at 10.3 DME, so we're getting better. And once we are established, actual inbound track, we can then descend down to 6,200. But I couldn't start that descent until we were established in the actual arc as well. So 10.1 DME is much better now. As you can see, we are getting close to the actual track. The bearing indicator and needle, yep, starting to get movement. All right. Start the turn, just reduce the intercept angle. Because that fix is a fly-by point, it's not an actual flyover point. The only flyover point is usually the missed approach procedure point. Alright, good. Needle still moving. Okay, we can descend to 6,200. We're established. Let's pull the throttle way back. Just to give us a chance to get down there. Alright, let's turn into a bit more now. Probably going to need about that correction, wind correction. That little purple diamond is actually indicating the actual track that you're flying. So oops, no, I need to go further this way. Nope. I get it backwards, so that's why I don't like using it. Just stick with the needles. And we are 7 miles out from the DME. And the missed approach point is 3.8 DME beyond the nav aid. So alright, so the wind is from our left, is currently blowing us back on track. You see the diamond is, purple diamond's just to the right of track, so it's indicating we're going to catch up to the track we want. 6 miles to the nav aid. Can't see the airport yet, but it's out there. We know it is. Alright, the wind is greatly reducing, so that's good. And we're planning on runway 29er. Just check the winds haven't changed.
Kilo India November Whiskey Automated Weather Observation 1600 Zulu. Wind 260 at 4.
Yep, it's the same.
Visibility 10. Sky condition clear. Temperature -3°C. Dew point 10°C. Altimeter 3044.
Yep.
Kilo India November.
That's all the same. Excellent. All right. 5,420 is actually our MDA for the circling approach. But we can't go to that until we go past the nav aid. 6,200 is our current limit. Oh, the barometric's back. Good. Even though it's I changed it to 5420. It's 5420 now because we're doing a circling approach. Because when I set that, it was we were going to do a straight in because the winds were calm. And you'd do obviously a radio call. Winslow, Cessna 172 Alpha Sierra Hotel is 7 miles to the west inbound on the VMR approach. Winslow, traffic. So, yeah, we're not really focusing on radio calls today. And 6,200 is our limit until we pass the actual nav aid. And we cannot go below it. The check rides, the MDAs and circling approaches and DAs, it's plus 100 minus 0. Anything else besides those altitudes, it's plus or minus 100 feet. So we still don't want to go below it. 6,200 feet. So we've got 400 feet to lose in 2 miles. Slow. Should be at 80. $100 to go. There we go. So we've got another mile and a bit to go. Oh, don't want to go too much faster. And we can see the runway now. Oops. So it's inside there. Let's stay on track, please. And we're on heading mode because I don't want to use the nav aid to track. It's getting very sensitive because we're getting close. So don't fall into the trap of chasing the needle. It's bad, bad, bad. Alright, we're about to get station passage. You'll see the bearing indicator swing around to the back behind us. And here we go. Boom. And if you're concerned, don't worry, it's all good. Look at that, we're still on track, pretty much. Tail is to the left of the track we want, so therefore we need to go to the right, do the opposite of what the tail is. And you follow the head of the needle, but do the opposite of the tail. And we can descend down to 5,420. And 3.8 is the DME, the missed approach point. You can see it doesn't get you exactly lined up with the runway, but it's close. Well, clearly we're visual, so we'll start our approach to runway 29er. Which is obviously, oh my goodness, I'm really disorientated, 29er. Wow, okay. Stand there. All right. Don't climb though. So the wind is 260 at 4 knots. It's not much of a wind, but it's it's some wind. So I'm just going to fly right downwind, make a right-hand turn, and then land on 29er. For some reason, I was thinking it was the cross runway, not the opposite end. I don't know why I was thinking that. That's why I was a bit disorientated momentarily. We're looking. Okay. And elevation is 4,900, so 59 is actually the pattern altitude, but because we are doing a circling approach, but we are visual, we have to remain within 1.3 nautical miles of the runway. I think we're within 1.3 miles. Okay, let's see. We are below 110 knots, so we can put the first 10 degrees of flaps out. And we're actually in the white arc, so we can go more. Let's put more power in. So we don't want to stall the bloody thing. We don't want to get too far away either. Let's start the turn. But we don't want to climb either, because it's meant to be a circling approach. That's the runway. Oh, there it is there. Pretty hard when you haven't got, only got one screen to look at it. Let's put the rest of these flaps out, baby. So we are pretty high. Hold on to your seats, folks. It's going to be bumpy.
500.
And we have plenty of runway, so we'll be fine. It is a displaced threshold, probably because of the interstate there. So you can take off on the displaced threshold, but you can't land on it. Yeah, they probably get some large trucks on that road there. Alright. I can show you my landing skills in real life are a lot better than what they are in the sim. There. Come on. Come on. Stall on the runway. Alrighty. Guess we made it. Walked away from that one. So, welcome to Winslow, Arizona. I never actually flew to Winslow Airport while I was out there. Alrighty. Let's take this exit. I think we'll just park in front there. First of all, I'll just hit the brakes. We'll just stop the aircraft momentarily. Okay. Strobes can come off. Landing lights can come off. Transponder, it's on altitude. It actually normally automatically goes back to standby or on ground because it bases it on ground speed. Gets to the GPS. Trim set for takeoff. And flaps can come up. After landing, flaps are up, strobes are off, landing lights off, taxi lights on, Peter heats off, mixture is fine, trim set for takeoff, transponder is around or on standby. Let's go, we'll just park in front here. Looks like a lovely default airport. I can show you, it looks a lot better than X-Plane 11. And let's just park over here somewhere. Yeah, looks like a fuel bowser over there or something. Let's just park facing this shed, eh? That'll do. That'll do just there. Back to 1000 RPM. Excellent. Alright, let's put the brakes on. Not that I use those brakes in real life. And taxi lights can come off. Alright, avionics off. Boom, boom. Pull the mixture. Switches off. Batteries off. And put the rest of the switches off. Awesome. Well, that jet seems a bit out of place, but that's okay. He'll go in a minute. Let's leave it there, like so. That looks like a good spot. So we've got the two towers. Why there's two towers, I don't know, but that's cool. With a large building and a jet leaving. Looks like a CRJ 900. It's quite a long one. And obviously the securing checklist. ELT, verify that it's off. Avionics are off. Yep. Mixtures fully lean. Mags are off. Musters off. Hobs, check time. Standby batteries off. Yep. Fuel selector left or right. Oh, I forgot to do that. Control locks. You put those in. Put the chocks in. You tie it down. Bit of covers on. Baggage doors closed. Lock the airplane up. And you put it to bed. That's it. Yeah, so that was a quick flight from Prescott to Winslow. And as obviously you saw the obstacle departure clearance, or procedure I should say, ODP, out of Prescott. And it's, yeah, it can be quite challenging flying over those areas with the limited performance in these aircraft. But it's a good experience for sure. So yeah, obviously in real life the Drake VOR is in op, so you'd have to use GPS for that whole flight today. But obviously in the sim that's all good. And yeah, I hope you got something out of this sim and learned something. I don't know. Maybe you didn't. Maybe you didn't watch it this far. I don't know. Either way, yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you later. G'day folks, Ashley from Groundspeed Gaming here, and I just wanted to do a quick video on the use or managing of a constant speed prop in flight. So I've seen a few guys on Flight Sim who are not pilots in real life, but I see some of the things they do and I'm like, oh, don't do that. And basically all you need to keep in mind with regards to managing this engine is the manifold pressure never wants to be higher, or you never want the manifold pressure to be higher than your RPM. So currently we have, let's just squeeze it up to 23. That's 23 inches of manifold pressure, and it's on 2300 RPM. So your throttle here, that's going to adjust your manifold pressure. The pitch lever, that's going to adjust your RPM. So we're currently in a cruise with 23 inches, 2300 RPM, so 23. That's our current setting. And if I want to accelerate in order to climb to a higher altitude, what you need to do is you always increase the RPM first and then the throttle. Raise the nose, climb to the altitude you want to climb to, and when you get there, lower the nose as you normally would. And then allow it to accelerate just a little bit. And then pull the throttle back. Oh, descending now. Pull the throttle back and then pull the RPM back. So that way your manifold pressure never exceeds what the RPM is. Oh, now we're climbing. It is easier in real life because you can feel the G-forces on the aircraft. So that's the basic premise behind in-flight management of a constant speed prop, or a variable pitch prop, really, is never let the manifold pressure go higher than your RPM. Now for takeoff and landing, you always have the pitch fully forward. So when you pull the throttle back, the RPM is going to drop. There it goes, it's dropping now. Push the throttle forward and the RPM is going to increase. So when it's fully forward, it's actually like flying a fixed pitch prop. And if you're coming into land and you've got the pitch fully forward, if someone pulls out on the runway or an animal runs out on the runway or something, you need to go around, you just simply go full throttle, your RPM's up, you'll climb, get out of there, go around and come back again. It's as simple as that. It's really easy. So don't let having a constant speed prop or a variable pitch propeller freak you out. There's not a lot more to it. But that's the general rule, is don't let the manifold pressure ever be higher than the RPM. That's pretty much it. And it doesn't take long to get used to it. So you've got a prop now with a variable pitch that's most efficient, not only in a climb, but it's also more efficient in a cruise. Because the fixed pitch prop is generally built at a pitch of an angle that is most effective in a cruise. So it's not as efficient in the climb. And so now you've got one that's most efficient in the climb and also in a cruise. So yeah, that's all there is to it. Anyway, I hope you got something out of this video, and I'll see you later. G'day folks, Ashley here from Groundspeed Gaming, and I want to show you a demonstration of the difference between vertical speed and flight level change for the autopilot. And I'll tell you what, currently we're just obviously tracking towards Asheville, North Carolina. We're somewhere in Kentucky airspace. The position itself today is not really relevant to this demonstration, but that's just where we are. So we're currently at 2,000 feet above mean sea level in a cruise at just under 2,300 RPM. And I'll tell you what, we'll change the altitude. We'll climb up to, make it 8,000 feet, that'll be fine. And I'll use the vertical speed. So I'll go full throttle. Let's go vertical speed. We'll put the nose up, watching the speed here to pick your speed, the rate of climb. Let's try 1,000 feet per minute, and see how we go. So the nose automatically raises to a certain angle or a certain pitch to try and maintain that 1,000 feet per minute, and we've got full throttle. As you see, we're currently maintaining 1,000 feet per minute, but the speed is slowly washing off, so keep that in mind. We'll see where the speed starts to ease off or starts to steady. if it does. It looks like it's starting to slow down now and maintain a certain speed. Like it's starting to slow down around 92 knots. Ah. Right. Okay. Oh, wait. 90, 91 knots. Okay. Seems pretty steady so far. That's good. That's good. The only problem with using vertical speed for climbing, which I only use vertical speed in most cases for descending, and I'll use flight level change for climbing. The reason I wanted to demonstrate vertical speed for a climb is that when you select a specific rate of climb, the autopilot will try and maintain it as best it can. It doesn't matter what the speed's doing, it's going to say, oh, we need to raise the nose because we've got to maintain that 1,000 feet per minute. I've already got full throttle. I can't give it any more thrust. So it's going to continue to try and raise the nose to try and maintain that 1,000 feet per minute. And fairly quickly, you can get yourself into a dangerous situation. Because, as I like to say, these autopilots are not very smart. They're just going to do what you program it to do. I've programmed it to do as best it can 1,000 feet per minute. So it's even struggling to do that right now. As you can see, the speed is slowly washing off. About to pass our best rate of climb, which is 74 knots for this aircraft. Oh, yeah. Is he going to maintain that? Oh, hang on. My rudder is dreadful. That's not helping. It's creating extra drag. Nope. It's going to even drop below that. But it's doing its best to try and maintain 1,000 feet per minute. So as you can see, that can quickly, if you're not paying attention, that can quickly get into a situation where the aircraft or the autopilot will bring you into a stall configuration, an aerodynamic stall. As you can see, we'll stall about here because there's actually no flaps extended right now. Yep, see the flaps are fully up. So we won't stall there, we'll actually stall about there. We'll get a warning actually fairly soon. And sometimes you're not aware of it until the warning pops up, but even then you don't have a lot of time to react. And we're not even close to where we want to go. So we're approaching 5,000 feet. We should hear the stall warning fairly soon. And if you're not aware of it, we go to flight level change. I changed it to flight level change, select 74 knots. It's going to set there. And what rate of climb are we going to get? I'm not sure. We'll find out in just a sec. So using the vertical speed, it almost brought the aircraft into a stall configuration if I didn't react. And if you're busy doing something else, doing some paperwork, chatting on the radio, programming your frequencies or whatever, and not watching your speed, that vertical speed can get you into a lot of trouble if you're not careful when using it to climb. If you're descending, however, it's a lot easier. Okay, so the flight level change we've set to 74, and it's doing its best to try and maintain that. Oops. My rudder work in this thing is not very good. It'll help if I straighten it up. There we go. Yeah, that's it. So we're getting 700 feet a minute. That's still pretty good. But with flight level change, doesn't matter what altitude we climb to, it's going to maintain 74 knots, our best rate of climb. And it'll, over time, as we continue to climb where the air is there's not as much pressure, it'll continue to lower the nose in order to maintain that 74 knots. So the rate of climb will descend, or will shrink, and our rate of climb will decrease the further we climb. It'll eventually get to a point where it won't climb any higher. I've tested it in the sim before, and it was a little over 17,000 feet or something, which is not realistic. Going by memory, I think in this aircraft in real life, you probably get the best true airspeed around about 6,000 or 7,000 feet. So you wouldn't really want to climb any much higher than that anyway. What's with the pedals, man? Me and my pedals in this thing is not very good. Pretty bad on the pedals in the sim here. Alright, see? Safely maintaining 74 knots. It's not going to get into a stall configuration, but the rate of climb is going to decrease the further you climb. And that's why I recommend flight level change for climbing and vertical speed for descending. And to change the speed you want to climb for flight level change, you just pick nose up, which will reduce the numbers, as you can see, or nose down, it will increase the numbers. And vertical speed, it's the same. You can increase or decrease the rate you want to climb. And we safely are going to make it up to 8,000 feet, passing 7,000, without stalling the aircraft. And that's why I use flight level change for climbing. Pretty straightforward. Yeah. There's your thumbnail right there. I'll pick one of those frames. Pretty awesome. Alright, well, hopefully you got something out of this video and learned something about flight level change versus vertical speed. So have fun out there and continue flying those sims. Alright, well, thanks for watching. I'll see you later. G'day folks, Ashley here from Ground Speed Gaming, and in this video I actually want to do a comparison of a maximum rate of climb at 74 knots, which is what it is for this aircraft. So I've got 74 knots in the flight level change preset in heading mode. We haven't activated it yet, but once we get to airborne, we'll activate it. And I want to compare it to, I've got it set here for, at maximum takeoff weight, well, 1 pound short of 1 pound short of the maximum takeoff weight, which I actually think that's the max ramp weight, but that's okay, we'll go with that. And we'll climb out at 74 knots and see not only what attitude we get, I'm guessing it's going to be 10 degrees or something, but what rate of climb we get, and then compare it to when the aircraft is really, really light and see if there's any difference. All right. So configuration is 0 flaps. 0 flaps. We'll rotate at 55, because that's the rotate speed there. Rotate 55. Climb out 74 at the best rate of climb. Keep my feet on the brakes. And everything's got to be the same. So we're going to full throttle, feet on the brakes. RPM's up. And let's just increase that visibility a bit. There we go. So as soon as I get airborne, I'll hit the autopilot, which is obviously something you don't do in real life, but in this case we will, just for an experiment. Brakes release, here we go. Last part's trying to keep this thing straight. The rudders are a little sensitive for my liking in this simulator. Runway's clear, airspeed is alive. Rotate. Okay, rotate. Bit of a lag there, that's okay. Let's quickly put the autopilot on and see if it follows that. It should. Okay, it's trying to maintain 74 knots. Just keep my feet straight to reduce the drag a little bit. Go. Alright, so we've got about probably 11 or 12 degrees nose up, 700 feet a minute. Not too bad, that's pretty good. And we'll just see how long it takes to get up to 6,000 feet. Of course, we just got airborne at about 0.6. Of course, I could have started the timer, but I didn't. That's alright. We'll see how long it takes to get to 6,000 feet. Already by 2,100 feet, you see the rate of climb starting to drop off a little bit, and the nose attitude is a little bit lower, as you'd expect the further we climb. And passing 3,000 feet Our rate of climb is a bit lower now. Well, it's sort of alternating a little bit. However, we are maintaining the 74 knots, but the nose continues to drop a bit lower and lower, showing just short of 10 degrees nose up. And obviously we expect it to continue to lower the nose to maintain 74 knots the further we climb. And just take note that I've actually forgot to turn the wind and the weather off, but the wind is pretty negligible, so I'll just leave it the same for the attempt at the lower weight. And passing 4,000 feet, still showing pretty positive rate of climb. It's quite good. This is performing better than I expected, so it'll be interesting to compare it to the extra light aircraft instead. And as we approach 5,000 feet, you can clearly see, obviously, the rate of climb is continuing to decrease. Our nose is continuing to lower to maintain that 74 knots with the same throttle setting. The throttle is fully forward. And this angle of pitch is based on 5,500 feet. Clearly you can see we're approaching 6,000 feet, our intended altitude, and our rate of climb is 500 feet, or alternating between 500 and 550 feet a minute at 74 knots, with clearly a much lower nose attitude compared to when we first took off. And the reason I chose 6,000 is because I didn't want to have to be here all day climbing to 10,000 feet or 15,000 or something, whatever altitude. So I figured 6,000 was adequate. Because most times you don't take these things more than 6,000 or 7,000 feet higher than the terrain, or above mean sea level, I should say. Here we go, lowering the nose. You see the speed will start to accelerate. Lower the nose. I can reduce the pedal a little bit. Go. We have 6,000 feet, and let's say it's 15, so 5, 6, 7, 8. That was about 9 minutes. I think it was 06 when we took off. I'll put a title explaining the actual time difference. Since I forgot to put the timer on at the beginning. Okay. Just wait to fully accelerate. And I'll pull it back to 23. That's kind of a typical cruising RPM setting. There we go, that's pretty good, 23. Let's just lean it a little bit, see if I can get some additional RPM out of it. There we go. Yeah. There we go. That's a little bit leaned. 6,000 feet. I'd say it's probably, what, 2.5 degrees nose up in order to maintain 6,000 feet. How's it look from a profile perspective? Okay, yep. There we go. Slight nose up, as you can see, compared to the horizon. All right. From here, we'll go back to the runway and start with an aircraft that's much lighter. All right, we are back on the ground, and just like before, we're going to take off with a runway heading. Hang on a sec. Let's set that. Yeah, there we go. Runway heading, and we're going to climb out at 74 knots. I'll activate the autopilot as soon as we get airborne, which is obviously something you do not do in real life. And if you ever have a warning of a low fuel, you don't take off. So this is clearly not real life. The brakes are off. My feet are on the brakes, and we have 0 flaps, just like the previous takeoff. Just go full throttle. Feet on the brakes, and go. Okay. So we're accelerating. We're going to climb to 6,000 feet using the flight level change of our best rate, 74 knots. Let's see if there's any difference. Spray tape. And switch the autopilot on. See how we go. And it's adjusting to the 74 knots. And clearly we have a much higher rate of climb, so the flight sim does take it into account. That's good. I wasn't actually sure if it did. Let's just pull that sound back a bit. We know what an engine sounds like. But clearly the fuel levels are just unacceptable. You wouldn't do this in real life. But there is a difference in our rate of climb. That's excellent. I really wasn't sure if the sim would take that into account or not. So showing slightly above 10 degrees nose up. 950 feet per minute climb rate at 74 knots. So clearly there is actually quite a difference. This is good. This is good. 3,000 feet, just under 1,000 feet a minute. 10 degrees nose up, 74 knots. Best rate. I'm loving it. This is good. Fuel situations not very good. Will we make it to 6,000 feet with this level of fuel? Also, when you have nose attitudes like this, all the fuel swishes around in the tanks, and if you have a nose up like this, the fuel, because it's so low, might move back far enough in the tank where it gets drained from the tank to go towards the engine. It might actually leave that part of the tank where it is drained into the engine. So, risk with the fuel so low, the engine actually cutting out because the fuel's going to continue or stop flowing to the engine if you have too steep an attitude, maybe. So yeah, it's definitely risky having this low level of fuel. And as we're approaching 5,000 feet, you can clearly see, as we would expect, the rate of climb is decreasing as we maintain the same 74 knots and the nose continues to lower. Still positive, but it's not as high as it was earlier, just to maintain that 74 knots with the same full throttle setting. And in case you're wondering why I haven't leaned in the climb, is actually I made a video recently I leaned in a climb, and actually in real life I don't do that. I don't lean until the aircraft's configured in a cruise configuration. And the reason being is you've got a high pitch attitude, a low airspeed, and a high RPM setting. So the engine's actually pretty hot. And with the excess fuel, it kind of acts as a form of coolant inside the cylinders. So yeah, I don't lean until I'm in cruising level. If I'm departing from a place like in Prescott, Arizona, the elevation was 5,000 feet of the airport, as soon as you start up, you lean it right away. And whatever you lean it to for taxiing, and you'll get a couple hundred RPM extra when you lean it properly. I'll leave it at whatever that setting is until I get to the cruise level, and then lean again later. Okay, we're at 6,000 feet. As you'd expect, it's lower to the nose, starting to accelerate. Our rate of climb is obviously decreasing. And I'll just allow it to accelerate, and I'll pull the throttle back to 2,300 RPM, which is kind of a typical cruising setting in a lot of engines. Alright, I'll start pulling it back now. But yeah, I wasn't sure if the sim was going to take the different weights of the aircraft into account to change the climb performance, but it actually does. So I was quite impressed by that, which is pretty cool. It's 2300 RPM, slightly less. Let's just lean it a little bit, see if the RPM picks up a little bit. It should. There we go. 10 more RPM. Yep. Bit more. Yep. Any more? No, that's it. Let's just go forward a bit. It's good. Yeah, 23, that's fine. Yep. How far back is it? Probably not very far. Yeah, it's not very far. I don't know how accurate the leaning is on the 172S model. All right, there we go. Clearly, there's a difference between performance with a heavyweight and a much lighter aircraft. So hopefully you got something out of this video, and yeah, thanks for watching. I'll see you later. G'day folks, Ashley here.